Good morning. My name is Aileen Mazariegos, and I will be speaking the English part of this presentation.
Buenos días, me llamo Valentina Vela y yo hablaré la parte en español de esta presentación.
Our theme is how during the year, Latina women develop equality in their health based on the presentation.
Nuestro tema principal es cómo durante el año las mujeres latinas desarrollaron la igualdad y su salud basada en la presentación.
The secretaries were Pamela Hermosa and Aileen Mazariegos. The designers were Lizette Mosquera and Daniela Mota. The writers were Cindy Leon Cortesano and Valentina Vela. The ceremony of teacher is Aileen Mazariegos and Valentina Vela. The public relationship were Cindy Leon Cortesano and Pamela Hermosa. The researchers were Juan Garcia and Randy Vargas Maldonado. The website designer were Randy Vargas Maldonado and Lizette Mosquera. The photographers were Juan Garcia and Daniela Mota.
Las secretarias en esta presentación fueron Pamela Hermosa y Aileen Mazariegos. Los diseñadores fueron Lizette Mosquera y Daniela Mota. Las escritoras fueron Cindy León Cortesano y Valentina Vela. Los maestros de ceremonia son Aileen Mazariegos y Valentina Vela. Las relaciones públicas fueron Cindy León Cortesano y Pamela Hermosa. Los diseñadores fueron Juan García y Randy Vargas Maldonado. Los diseñadores del sitio web fueron Randy Vargas Maldonado y Lizette Mosquera. Los fotógrafos fueron Juan García y Daniela Mota.
During the investigation, we have come to the conclusion that throughout the year, there were many unfair treatments for the Latino women.
Durante la investigación hemos llegado a la conclusión que a lo largo de los años hubo muchos malos tratos para las mujeres latinas.
At the beginning of the time, there were no rights for women. Over the years, women began to develop rights. Here, you can see on a chart on the left, during the 19th centuries, women did not have enough rights, especially to vote. But after the 19th Amendment, it allowed the right women to vote, and it increased since the early 20th century. This process known as the female suffrage. And on the right side, you could see a higher percentage of women that had fewer opportunities than men in many situations. Men had better jobs than women and dominated the workforce, preventing women from moving up the ladder.
Al principio del tiempo no había ningún derecho para las mujeres. Con el paso de los años comenzaron a desarrollarlos. Aquí pueden ver en el gráfico de la izquierda, durante la década de 1890, muchas mujeres no tenían suficientes derechos, especialmente para votar. Pero después de la 19ª enmienda, que afecta el derecho de las mujeres a votar, que se ha incrementado desde principios de los años 1900, y esto es conocido como sufragio femenino, que las mujeres sufragen el derecho de sí mismas a votar en las elecciones. Y en el lado derecho pueden ver que más porcentaje de mujeres que de hombres tienen menos oportunidades en muchas situaciones. Los hombres eran más buscados que las mujeres para el trabajo debido a la falta de conexión que las mujeres no tenían. Tampoco ocupaban puestos ejecutivos o de alto rango.
Speaking of women who did not have enough opportunities during the 19th centuries, women mainly stayed working on the household and cooking for the family. In the 19th centuries, the role of the woman was to take care of their children and their husband. In this time period, women never really had an important role from an economic point of view. During this time, it was a patriarchal society, which is when a wife is inferior to her husband.
Hablando de mujeres que no tenían suficientes oportunidades durante el siglo XVIII, las mujeres se encargaban principalmente de limpiar la casa y cocinar para su familia. Además, en esta década del 1800, el papel de las mujeres se dio a la sociedad en el cuidado de sus hijos y su marido. En este tiempo, las mujeres nunca tuvieron realmente un papel importante desde el punto de vista económico. Algunas personas también dirían que es patriarcado, que es cuando una esposa es inferior a su marido.
Now we'll talk about Jessica Gonzalez Rojas and Liam Paltrow, two abortion rights investigators reporter. According to the two women, many Latina experience abortion, especially the young Latinas who are going to college, which could be a serious problem. The economy only allows them to have a minimum of 2 children to apply for the university, and approximately 80% of women are Catholic, and it is known as the abortion is prohibited in the Catholic Church.
Ahora hablaremos sobre lo que Jessica González Rojas y Lynn Paltrow tuvieron sobre los derechos del aborto. Según lo que habían dicho las dos mujeres, muchas latinas habían experimentado un aborto, especialmente las jóvenes latinas que se dirigían a la universidad, lo que podría ser un grave problema. La economía solo les permite tener mínimo de 2 niños para solicitar la universidad. Y aproximadamente el 80% de las mujeres son católicas, y se sabe que el aborto está prohibido en la Iglesia Católica.
Now we'll watch a video that we would like to share with you guys.
Ahora vamos a ver un video que quisimos compartir con ustedes.
So I don't know if I need to make the case of why an organization like Latina Institute exists, but I do want to make the case, particularly to you all, but I do want to make the case to why access to reproductive health care and abortion, what does that look like for the 24 million Latinas in this country today? And while we can't walk in her shoes, we can begin to imagine what it means for a Latina who seeks an abortion today. She's most likely already a mother. She's most likely in her 20s. And her reasons for seeking an abortion may be to protect her health, to plan her family, to pursue an education, or to take care of the children she already has. She may or may not speak English, and she may or may not have documents like a green card, a driver's license, or a passport. And for a Latina without documents, she may have to seek abortion care within an underground support network and may not encounter safe or legal spaces to obtain a safe abortion. She may live in a state like Texas, where there's some Texans in the room. We know that the women's health program has been decimated. And it's mostly been decimated by anti-choice, anti-woman state government. She may live in Arizona. Any Arizonans in here? Yeah, next year. In Arizona, we're seeing anti-immigrant policies and stigma drive many women away from seeking health care and other critical services. I heard from providers in clinics in Arizona wondering why on a particular day they had no patients. It was because a Border Patrol truck was parked in their parking lot. She may have a loving, supportive family and partner, or she may be experiencing intimate partner violence, abuse, or contraceptive coercion. She may have grown up with misinformation about sexual health, or with no information at all. And if she does decide to seek an abortion, she may live in one of the 87% of counties with no abortion provider. So we can't begin to understand the complex factors and unique circumstances that weigh on her mind and play a role in her decision-making. And regardless of how we feel about her decision, it's not our place to judge her. Everyone deserves the ability to make this decision for themselves, regardless of race, immigration status, language, ability, sexual orientation, gender identity, source of insurance, or how much money she has in her pocket. And regrettably, for that woman seeking an abortion, the last few years have made things more difficult, as we all know. 2011 and 2012 saw anti-choice legislators introduce and enact record numbers of provision that make it harder, make it more complicated, or make it more expensive for a woman to access abortion services. And we know anti-choice governors and legislators are just not backing down, right? And that's why what you're doing is so important. And most Americans have heard of Roe v. Wade, but few know the name Rosie Jimenez. And Rosie's story actually tells us more about abortion in America than any Supreme Court case does. Rosie Jimenez was 27 years old. She was a Latina college student and a single mother, and she got pregnant after Roe became legal. She qualified for Medicaid, but because the Hyde Amendment, the Hyde Amendment had gone into effect 2 months earlier, she couldn't get the coverage for the abortion that she needed. Rosie was 6 months away from graduating from a public nursing background, and it was a ticket for a better life for herself and her family. Unable to raise the money to pay for a legal abortion, she turned to an unsafe and illegal procedure. And on October 3rd, 1977, when I was 1 year old, Rosie died of septic shock, the first known victim of the Hyde Amendment. and a painful reminder that legal abortion means little to a woman who can't afford it. And I wish I could say things have gotten better, and unfortunately, our current policies all but guarantee that there are and there will be more stories like Rosie's. 1 in 4 Latinas live in poverty, and Latinas are more than twice likely to experience an unintended pregnancy, twice as likely to get their insurance from public source. And denying public insurance coverage for abortion, current law leaves very few options for the 1 in 4 Latinas who use Medicaid, serve in the military, or otherwise rely on public insurance. So the dire impact of the Hyde Amendment and restrictions like it cannot be underestimated. Reversing these policies must be a top priority in order for the promise of Roe to be realized. And despite the sobering news from state legislators in the field, we actually have a lot to be proud of, and we have great hope for the future. For years, advocates and organizers working with Latinos have seen firsthand our community's compassion and support for women's reproductive decision-making. In 2011, Latina Institute, along with our colleagues at the Reproductive Health Technologies Project, we conducted the largest ever opinion poll about Latina attitudes on abortion. And what we found affirmed our own experiences working with women in the community. 8 in 10 Latinos, and that's men and women, support a close friend or family member who needed an abortion. And while this past November, we even saw exit polls, independent of Latina Institute's poll, that reconfirmed our findings. 66% of Latino voters supported a woman's ability to make personal, private decisions about abortion without politicians interfering. And despite the persistent and unfortunate stereotypes around Latinos' cultural, political, and religious beliefs, the data is clear. We are supportive, and we're getting more and more supportive every day.
The health of Latina women is as important as everyone's health. Many Latina women got sick because of the various diseases they could have received from their partner or other people. For example, AIDS, STD, flu, smallpox, etc. were some of the common diseases that were going around. Unfortunately, many Latina women did not have the access to vaccines like other people that do have health insurance for themselves or their family.
La salud de las latinas es tan importante como la salud de todos. Bueno, muchas latinas se enfrentan debido a muchas enfermedades que vienen de muchos lugares y recibirlo de su pareja u otras personas, por ejemplo, AIDs, TSDs, etc., en los que podría resultar que muchas mujeres no tengan acceso a vacunas como otras personas y no tengan seguro médico para su familia y para sí mismas.
Did you know that women were not hired for professional work? Well, now women can have the same privileges as men. Many women today are able to learn and have real jobs. For example, today women can work in administration, technical sales, operators, teachers, and the list goes on.
¿Sabía que las mujeres no fueron contratadas para trabajos profesionales? Bueno, ahora las mujeres pueden tener los mismos privilegios que los hombres. Muchas mujeres hoy en día son capaces de aprender y tener un trabajo real. Por ejemplo, hoy las mujeres pueden trabajar en administración, ventas técnicas, operadoras, decentes y la lista continúa.
These were the resources we used for our investigation for Latin women.
Estos fueron los recursos que nosotros usamos para la investigación de las mujeres latinas.
Our star Latina is Jessica Gonzalez Rojas.
Nuestra estrella latina es Jessica González Rojas.
Some information about her is that she is an adjunct assistant professor of public service of New York, Robert F. Wagner. She teaches courses on reproductive rights, gender, and sexuality.
Y estos son algunos datos importantes sobre ella. Jessica es profesora adjunta del servicio público de la New York University Robert Wagner, directora ejecutiva de posgrado de servicio público, y ha impactado clases sobre derechos reproductivos, género y sexualidad.
Pamela and Eileen called and interviewed Jessica. We have asked her some questions that we would like to share with you.
Por último, Pamela y Eileen han llamado a Jessica para una entrevista y hemos hecho algunas preguntas que nos gustaría compartir con ustedes.
What was the success of the National Latina Institute for the Reproduction Health? She said, I did not create the organization. I joined the organization in 1994. I saw that many women did not have the rights, so I wanted to help.
¿Cuál era el propósito del Instituto Nacional Latina para Cuidados Reproductivos? Ella respondió, no creé la organización, me uní a la organización en 1994. Vi que muchas mujeres no tenían sus derechos, así que quise ayudar.
Does someone inspire you to be the person who you are today? My grandmothers inspired me to be the person who I am today. Both are very different. One is more humble while the other is dramatic. They both said there need to be a change because they believe that women should fight for justice.
¿Alguien te inspiró a ser la persona en la que eres? Ella respondió, mi abuela me inspiró a ser la persona en quien soy hoy. Ambas somos muy diferentes, una es más humilde mientras que la otra es más dramática. Ambas dijeron que tenían que haber un cambio, porque creían que las mujeres deberían luchar por la justicia.
How do you feel helping Latino women? She says, I do not call it help, but I call it the construction of power. I wanted to create space for people to have power. The women began to open themselves, so Jessica didn't want to leave them. They are spirits and they support them.
¿Cómo te sientes ayudando a las mujeres latinas? Ella no lo llama ayuda, sino que lo llama construcción de poder. Ella quería crear un espacio para que la gente tenga poder. Las mujeres comenzaron a ver esa admiración, así que Jessica no quería dejarlas solas. Son espíritus y decidió apoyarlas.
What obstacles did you have at the beginning when going through these transitions? The obstacle she had was working on restaurants at the beginning and in supermarkets. At first, it was a difficult life, but then she got used to it and began to realize that it was worth it. A challenge she faces today is speaking fluent Spanish.
¿Qué obstáculos tuvo al principio al pasar por sus transiciones? Los obstáculos que tuvo fueron trabajar en restaurantes y en supermercados. Al principio fue una vida difícil, pero luego se acostumbró y comenzó a darse cuenta de que valía la pena. Un desafío que enfrenta hoy es hablar español con fluidez.
Done fast.
Yeah. You should announce that. Who is that?
Oh, what was one of the jobs women had at the present time?
You know what? There really wasn't much explanation, so he's just supposed to, because I need to interpret for him. If they're all watching, I can't.
There's like multiple choices, like on the
The
bottom.
thing is, I can't read that question and interpret it. So someone, if they can read the question, I can read it.
Which is the main reason why young women have an abortion?
¿Cuál es la razón principal en que la mujer joven tiene un aborto?
Whoa, we're messed up. What was the purpose of the National Latina Institute for Reproductive Health?
¿Cuál es el propósito de la Instituto Nacional Latina para Cuidados Reproductivos?
Jessica is a long leader of the...
Jessica es líder por mucho tiempo de...
What job does Jessica have in the National Latina Institute?
¿Qué trabajo tiene Jessica en el Instituto Nacional Latina?
How many seconds? What classes did Jessica Gonzalez teach?
¿Qué clases enseña Jessica González Rojas?
It's okay.
Yay, Luis. ¿Qué?
Ustedes como mujeres, ¿qué hacen para lograr la igualdad de género?
The question was, what do we women do for, to make equality for men and women?
Women equality.
Oh, yeah, women equality. Well, before in the 19th century, there wasn't equality, as you all know in history. Now, we can vote as women. We can vote. As Jessica in the video said, that not many women have that opportunity, and also in our countries, like I don't know, like where we're from, like Hispanic, Latinas, still have that suffrage going on, but also want to be able to make equality. Still, that's why there's kind of like laws now for women to have that opportunity.
¿Puedes traducir eso o también poner su opinión, señorita? Porque me
Sí,
imagino que
porque no
también quiere
entendí.
escuchar su opinión. Porque me imagino que es para todo el grupo, ¿no? Sí, no solamente para ustedes dos. It's not only for the two of you, but for the whole group, Grupo González Rojas. Entonces hay 6 miembros aquí.
Pues yo pienso que nosotras mismas somos las que debemos causar la diferencia para lograr una igualdad de género, pensando que nosotras también podemos, porque eso es lo que también nos oprime, que nosotras no pensamos, nos tienen con el ideal siempre de que nosotras somos más pequeñas que ellos, cuando en realidad tenemos muchas más capacidades y mejores para lograr que los hombres. No porque seamos mujeres y no tengamos la fuerza que tienen ellos, no quiere decir que no podemos lograr las mismas cosas.
¿Puedes decir lo que ella dijo o no?
In other words, like she said, like we also as women have the same equality as men. In other words, like just because us women, we don't, it looks like we're less, but in reality we could do more than men. Well, we could do more than men well, right now, like we have us, like now we all go to school together. Like it used to be in a society that only boys go to school, but now you see we're all mixed, women and girls and boys go to school.
Still happens in the world.
Yeah, it still happens in the world that some people, men only go to school in their countries, but no.
¿Alguien más?
Is there anyone else who has questions? Oh, well, during the project, well, for me, it was a lot of work putting it all together, like looking at it for research. Well, we all had our parts. One of the things that I realized that I didn't know, I thought like for now, like, since we all go to school, like we are all equal, but in real life, like there's still women out there that need that support, that need that help. Like, for an example, like as I was saying in the presentation, what I didn't know is that the economy of allowing women to go to college, university, was hard for them when they had their kids. So it didn't. That's when for them it's as if their dreams stopped, but like because there wasn't that support. But through this organization, Jessica Gonzalez, what she did was she helped them, encouraged them, and supported them to be the persons who they are, who they want to be in the future today. Yeah.
Lo que aprendimos todos fue una gran investigación y tuvimos mucho trabajo en grupo. Nos centramos de cosas que no sabíamos y aprendimos muchas cosas diferentes. También entendimos que es importante la salud de la mujer latina en este país y en los de nosotros mismos. Y tuvimos diversidad de ideas, de pensamientos.
The question was, how long did it take for our group to put this all project together? Well, we started the project after the spring break. Well, he told us beforehand about the project, so we had a little bit of time of investigating during the spring break. So it took like a month to put all of this together.
¿Cuánto tiempo tardó para hacer esto? ¿Cuánto tiempo tenían para terminar el trabajo?
Wait.
¿Cuánto tiempo tuvimos para completar el proyecto? Un mes.
So the question was, us as women, do we support the abortion or not? Well, in my opinion, it depends on the woman in her situation. Like for example, in your religion, based on the religion, Catholic, basically they don't accept abortion. Depending on the religion, I think, or depending how you grew up, it affects your choices that you make, yeah, in life.
Dependiendo la situación y lo que pase con la mujer y lo que haya pasado con ella.
¿Le han inspirado a ustedes de seguir en algo, de promover algo en sus vidas con el tema que han escogido ustedes? Todas las cosas en inglés,
What he said is, if we want to, like, now that we know this project and this organization, should we like put it into our lives, right? Or
Just promover.
promote in our life. Well, now that I know about this organization, about how helping women, well, as it encourages me to like help other like girls or other like Latino, not only Latina, actually every woman, because we're all unified as one. I think it's important to help one another and support each other in our daily lives. If you see somebody like down, like support them, be like, oh, what's wrong with you? You know, help them out.
Creo que a mí me ayudó a continuar con proyectos que tenemos a largo plazo, porque se ve la dedicación que ella tuvo desde siempre y también el esfuerzo que tuvo que hacer al principio, trabajando en restaurantes, en supermarkets, y ahora se puede ver reflejado el esfuerzo que ella tuvo y que sí valió la pena. Entonces esto nos incentiva a trabajar duro, porque aunque hay épocas difíciles, con el tiempo se ven los resultados.
What do men have at this time? Well, there was this process. Well, at that time, men were the ones dominating, like taking over women. Like, since I'm in Latina, macho en la casa, you know, I'm the macho. So women had to like obey like whatever the husband said in their house. So at that time, not many men supported. They wanted, some of them back them down or didn't. Well, others did support women, like yeah, like make the law and everything, but like.
Ella preguntó qué rol tenía el hombre durante esta época en la que las mujeres eran oprimidas. Pues el hombre tuvo un papel machista en el que, aunque todavía los hay, en ese tiempo pues obviamente serán más. Las mujeres no tenían derechos, en este momento se estaban desarrollando, así que el hombre sentía que él tenía el poder por sencillamente ser el que trabajaba en la casa, así que la mujer era sumisa, pero con el tiempo se fueron desarrollando otras cosas, así que pues nada.
Yeah.
So women without papers, they couldn't have an abortion? Or
Oh, so the question was, so women without abortion, could they have papers? Wait, what?
women without papers couldn't get an abortion?
They
Sí.
could.
Ilegalmente.
Yeah.
I want to thank Señor Andrés, Ms. Seikertz, Ms. Lee, Señora Salazar, and Ms. de Graffney. Thank you for coming, everybody. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Eileen Mazariegos, and I would like to introduce you to Jessica Gonzalez Rojas, who has come here to talk about the Latina women health and rights for Latina women. Muy buenas tardes, mi nombre es Eileen Mazariegos y los quiero introducir a presentar a Jessica González Rojas, que que va a hablar de las latinas, los derechos de las latinas, de su salud y sus derechos de ellas.
Thank you, Eileen. Really appreciate it. Can folks hear me? Okay. I'm very honored to be here. I haven't been in a high school in a very long time, despite my youthful looks. I'm Jessica Gonzalez Rojas. I'm the executive director at the National Latina Institute for Reproductive Health. We are an organization that seeks to build Latina power to advance health, dignity, and justice for Latinas, their families, and their communities. And how do we do this? We do this a few different ways. We do this by elevating Latina leaders and families. We do this by catalyzing policy change. We do this by mobilizing our communities. And we do this by shifting the cultural narrative. Because as many of us may know, there's a lot of sort of myths and stereotypes about Latinas in this country. And a lot of these have been created not by us and not for us, but have been used against us. So a lot of the work that we do is really to demonstrate our power and our ability to shape who we are as a community and be able to fight for health, dignity, and justice across the country. So we're an organization, we're a nonprofit organization. We are based in New York City, but we have offices in Washington, D.C., Virginia, Florida, and Texas. So we do this work around the country, and I spend a lot of time not just in New York, but actually in Washington, D.C. And back a few months, a year and a half ago, I used to be at the White House a lot and at Congress a lot, fighting for laws that would help Latinas be able to access the healthcare that they need. So we do the work at an interesting intersection. We look at not just women's health and rights, but we look at the issues that Latinas face in particular, the discrimination, issues around language access, issues around immigration status, issues around poverty. I don't know if you know, but Latinas make about 54 cents per dollar every white man makes. So there's a big wage gap amongst our community. So we address issues around health and reproductive health and women's rights through a lens that centers the Latina women, the Latina experience. And that's really important in our approach because it allows us to be more authentic and speak on not on behalf of the community, but with the community. The work we do around the country is around having folks understand their inherent rights. We believe we're all powerful. I believe you are all powerful. And that folks have gotten, again, messages that have been very negative about themselves. So a lot of the work that we do is actually working with our Latinas to sort of unravel those messages we get about ourselves and talk about self-worth, right? That we are powerful human beings. We have human rights. We have the ability to be healthy in this country, and we should. And learn about the laws and the systems that often present barriers to getting reproductive health care and just health care in general in this country. So the work is really, really amazing and empowering. And it's wonderful to work around the country and be inspired by the communities that we work with. One community we work with is in the Rio Grande Valley of Texas. Has anyone been to Texas or has lived in Texas? No. Texas is the community we work in is right along the border of the U.S. And Mexico. So there's not a lot of resources for the community. For example, many folks live in houses that don't have electricity or don't have running water, or their streets aren't paved, they're just dirt roads. They don't get mail pickup, they don't get garbage pickup, they don't have community health centers, they don't have adequate schools, right? Like, these are the communities that many of our people live in throughout the country. And we work with women in those communities to understand that despite the fact that they may be poor, despite the fact that they may be an immigrant, despite the fact that they may not speak English, that they have inherent power and they have inherent worth and that they can make change in this country. So I will share a video about our work. I always like to bring videos because it allows us to show the voices of the women that we work with, right? We believe that those most impacted will be the agents of change in this country, in this society. And I never like to speak on their behalf. I always like to sort of bring them into the space, even though I can't bring them all from Texas, Virginia, Florida, and New York City here. But you'll hear some of these voices in this video. And just for background, this video was developed about 2 years ago for our 20th anniversary. We had a big gala, a really fun event in Washington, D.C., and we shared the video for the audience to really learn about all the different aspects of our work.
National Latina Institute was originally part of Catholics for Free Choice. There was a very strong need for a Latina organization that really was going to engage the women on the ground and include them on the policy work.
We just felt like women were not part of the Latino civil rights movement, and Latinas were not part of the reproductive health and rights movement. We realized that what we needed to do was actually set our own table.
Even from those early days, we had a commitment to the community. We were doing organizing in New York. We were growing our base in Texas. We were out in Miami. So we were already doing work in the community with such a small team. And it's just been amazing to see, what we were before, where we are today. It's just grown exponentially.
We are dedicated to ensuring that Latinas have access to the healthcare they need when they need it, and to be able to raise their families with dignity and justice.
She responded to something, so I have her email.
And the reason that it's so important that justice is brought into this movement and this frame is that for many communities, it is not enough to have a right on paper. It's not enough even to have an accessible facility where you can exercise your right, because the issues of poverty and discrimination and homophobia have such an intersecting impact on certain communities.
As a healthcare provider to nearly 3 million people every year, we see at Planned Parenthood health centers every day the very tough obstacles that women face to access abortion services, including Latinas. That's why it is so important to have the Latina Institute advocating and fighting for the rights of all women to make their own decisions about whether to have children or not have children, and to access the healthcare that they deserve and need.
If we are really going to have access to real sexual health information, to reproductive health and rights, if we're really going to increase access to abortion services, we have to engage everyday people across the country, from coast to coast.
The community is really in need of a lot of education, comprehensive sex education, voting rights education.
En las últimas 2 elecciones, el voto latino está transformando el país. Vamos a ser la nueva mayoría en este país.
Si es una mujer humilde, si es una mujer con poder,
a eso me dedico, a que las mujeres tengan un nuevo lenguaje sobre la salud reproductiva, que las mujeres no nos quedemos con los conceptos sociales que nos han enseñado por décadas.
Lo que hacemos con ellas es juntas comunitarias, nos reunimos con ellas por lo menos una vez al mes. Trabajamos, las educamos, les damos información de salud y más que nada, lo importante que es utilizar su voz.
Pero que a veces las personas...
The National Latina Institute for Reproductive Health does the most important job, which is centering the most impacted communities in the political and policy fights.
Thanks to the Latina Institute, now we have the Latina Task Force in the coalition, which focuses on looking at all the priorities of the coalition with gender lenses. This has been critical and so important, not only for the community, but for the nation.
Where they don't qualify for things.
The National Latina Institute has always served as a really amazing bridge organization between mainstream organizations and the reproductive justice movement, between national groups and local groups on the ground.
People are understanding the nuance around abortion. They're understanding the importance of birth control. They're understanding the, health inequities that we experience as a community. And people are talking about their bodies and about sex. And this is stuff that often doesn't happen in our communities.
Y elegí hacer esto porque no es algo de ahora, de acá y de nosotras, sino que es algo que nos atraviesa como
This organization is absolutely committed to the cause. They put their heart and soul into their advocacy work. They're really fearless when you see them go to the Hill and advocate on their issues. They always stand up for the right side, even if it's not politically expedient. And that commitment and the willingness to put so much of their resources into advancing the cause for our community, not just for Latinas, but for Latinos as well, it's really impressive, it's unusual, and it's especially impressive because you've only been at it for 20 years.
Reproductive justice is a core issue for social justice and human dignity in our society. The rights of women to have agency and autonomy with regards to their bodies, their health care, is something we fundamentally believe in and support.
We work and build agents of change who are changing the conversation, changing the policies, being leaders in the community. And when you invest in that, you invest in change in society.
Latina Institute is changing women's lives, giving them confidence, giving them hope to keep fighting, that there's women around the country who are fighting with them, and that they're not alone.
So when we believe in that, there's nothing that can stop us.
Somos poderosas.
Somos poderosas.
Ustedes son poderosas.
Adelante, poderosas.
Sí se puede.
Somos poderosas.
Me siento feliz, soy poderosa.
Somos poderosas.
Me siento orgullosa y poderosa.
That's what I get to do every day. I get to work with these amazing people in fighting for health, dignity, and justice in our communities. And as you saw, this was a subsection of people that we work with, both the activists and the women we work directly with and their families. So men, you are not excluded from this conversation. We have many men, and we have transgender people, and we have queer people, and we have women, and we have young women, and everyone at all identities is welcome into our work because we believe that it takes all of us to succeed. And some of the folks that were in the video were people who have donated to us. As a nonprofit organization, we are literally nonprofit, right? I get paid, but the work is we raise money in order to do this work. So this was a cross-section of people who give us money, people who partner with us at other organizations, at Latino civil rights organizations, other women's rights organizations. The leader of Planned Parenthood was there. These are the partnerships that we create to advance our work. And again, I think the heart and soul of our work is our community, the women that you heard from, the families you heard from, that are on the ground. And the issues they're fighting for is everything from access to basic health care, like very basic health care, access to contraception, access to abortion care, access to pap smears, all sorts of medical services we're fighting for. We need all our communities to be healthy. And the concept of reproductive justice is really to think about a way to determine and ensure that all people have the human right to reproductive health, dignity, and justice, and the ability to determine if, when, and how to create a family that they wish to create, right? If, when, and how. So that's at the core. And again, we bring all the conditions that people face, whether it's poverty, whether it's immigration, whether it's language access, whether, where you live in the country depends on how healthy you are. That's not fair. And we're fighting to make sure that we're breaking down the barriers so that everyone can get access to health care. So I'll stop there, and I'm willing to answer any questions. Or if you want, I could share a little bit of my own journey, but I'll stop and answer any questions about the organization or our work. So we actually started in Washington, D.C. There was an organization called Catholics for a Free Choice, and this was in the 1990s. And there was a woman who was running the Latina initiative. So it was another organization that had a Latina-like project, and she decided to take, to separate from the other organization and create her own organization, which became the National Latina Institute for Reproductive Health. So initially, we were started in 1994 as, formally the Latina Initiative, and then we grew from being in Washington, D.C. to being in New York City. Our office is downtown New York City, which is by the Wall Street area, which is a very strange place to work, I have to be honest. But we do organizing in the Bronx. So we work with women in the Bronx and, work with them on, learn about their rights and all that. And then we have offices in Washington, D.C. As you saw, a lot of the video was us in Congress, like walking in and talking to your representative. Pay attention to your government or civics class, because that's how you fight for justice, right? We literally take women who have never been on an airplane and take them to Washington, D.C., and they tell their congressional members, my community doesn't have health care and we're fighting for it. So, that we have an office there that helps bridge that gap so that community members can be connected to their policymakers and to those leaders who are making the decisions for us. And then we have an office in Virginia, in Northern Virginia, and then Miami, Florida, and then the Rio Grande Valley in Texas, which is like the very southern part of Texas. So we've grown a lot over the last 20 plus years. And it's been beautiful to watch, a really small organization to become really national in both, scope of work and actual people on the ground. I'll just share a little bit about my journey personally. I grew up in New York City. I grew up in Queens. I actually went to high school in Long Island. I went to college at Boston University, and I studied international relations. I thought I wanted to be a diplomat to the United Nations. That was my dream. And that's what I studied. And it was actually an experience of going to get birth control at a Planned Parenthood in Boston that changed my life. So me and my partner at the time sort of went to an appointment to the Planned Parenthood, and when we got to the Planned Parenthood, there was a big crowd outside, and I went to, kind of, okay, I gotta get through this crowd, I gotta get to the door. But the crowd, they attacked me, they spit at me, they yelled at me, they told me not to do it, and I was so confused. I'm like, what am I doing? I'm getting birth control. So, people were really judging me for accessing reproductive health care, right? They were literally, crowds of people were yelling at me and grabbing me and shouting at me for walking into that clinic. And at that moment, I learned that that's not right. That I was scared, right? I got scared to get through that crowd, to get to the clinic. And then finally when I got to the door, I had a buzz. It was locked. I had a buzz. Then I had to say my name through a speaker. And then a security guard had to check my name. And meanwhile, all these people are still screaming at me. And, I felt like, wow, I'm just getting health care, right? I'm just getting health care. So I remember when I sat down finally, and I remember just feeling shaken up. And what happened was that they didn't prevent me from getting health care. What they did is that they created an activist. And they created someone that said, and this is what I said to myself, that no one should ever go through that. No one should ever go through that for just getting the health care that they need and they want. So that changed my life, right? That experience really exposed me to how much hate was out there for people to be able to exercise their rights. And for me, I was a college student, I spoke English, I'm very light-skinned, right? I was like, wow, if they treat me like this, I can't imagine what they would treat, an immigrant woman who doesn't speak the language and, is not educated, right? Like, I was sort of at a privilege, and that's how they were treating me. And I knew that I had to do something. So after college, I got an internship. Make sure to keep your eyes out on internships when you're in school. With Congresswoman Nydia Velázquez, the first Puerto Rican woman to run for Congress. And through that time, I moved away from the international relations, right? Remember I said I wanted to be at the UN, to more thinking about what domestic policy, right? Like how are laws created in the United States that allow people to thrive in this country and be able to succeed and to be able to be healthy and you know, succeed in life. So that was a really moving experience to be able to work for the Congresswoman. And I think from there it just turned, you know, you sort of take different opportunities that they come. I worked largely with immigrant communities, just working on immigration access and being able to, you know, find work in this country and be able to raise a family in this country. And then for many years, I worked at New York University, working with the Office for African American, Latino, and Asian American Student Services. And that's where I met somebody at this organization who came to me and said, this is 2004, she said, we're organizing for a big march in Washington, D.C., and we want to make sure there's Latinas. And this march is for women's rights. It's for reproductive rights. And we want to make sure that it's not, you know, that there's a big Latina presence. And I worked with the Latino students on campus at NYU, so I was able to organize some of the students to learn about the march, get involved in the march, and you know, I was like, wow, I want to go to this march. And I didn't get to go to the march, but I did learn about this organization, and for me, it was sort of coming home, right? The idea that I get to work at an organization that, you know, deals with issues that are very personal to me, very personal to the country, to my family. And do it through a Latina lens. So that's been very, very inspiring. And I started out working as the policy director, and I did a lot of that Washington, D.C. travel to Congress. And then I became the deputy director, so I was able to move up. And now I'm the executive director, which means I'm la jefa, I'm the boss, which is great and a big honor to be able to represent this organization and represent the amazing communities that we work on behalf. So that's a little bit of my journey. It was, I didn't go straight to knowing this is what I wanted to do. I think that's important for you all to know as young people. You don't have to know exactly what you want to do in life, but it is good to know what inspires you, what you value, what you want to see in the world. And there's many ways to get there to fight for the things you believe in. And I encourage you all to think about doing so. So I will stop there. Any other questions? I'm happy to answer anything about my personal journey or working at an organization that's a social justice mission. So the 3 issue areas that we fight for is abortion access and affordability, reproductive health equity, and the health and rights of immigrant women. And what I find, which is interesting, one of the biggest obstacles is actually within the social justice space. So sometimes it's not with the people who disagree with you, because you know they're going to disagree with you, and you have to sort of be prepared to make the argument, make the case, and push for what you believe. But sometimes the people that are supposed to be on your side aren't on your side. So for example, working in the immigrant rights communities, right, working alongside many of those leaders, they don't want to talk about women in immigration, right? They just want immigration to be sort of, I don't know, unisex. But we know that immigrant women are often the backbones of our families and communities, right? If we think about perhaps if our mother's an immigrant, right, think about all the things they've done to allow you to be here, right? Like work and navigate the school system and navigate the healthcare system and, you know, and so the lives and the plight of immigrant women are so central to the immigrant rights fight, but oftentimes those leaders in the immigrant rights field don't want to talk about that. So that's been a challenge because, you know, when we're fighting for immigration reform, we want to say, you know, and we're fighting for access for health care for immigrants and specifically reproductive health care. And they don't want to, they take that off the table, right? So we have an agenda, we have a goal, and, you know, it ends up getting watered down because some of our friends don't really want to talk about that because they feel like, well, we're going to lose. We're going to lose if we talk about that. And we believe you have to stand by your values. We believe you have to stand by the issues you care deeply about in order to fight for justice. So oftentimes, you know, we have to sort of agree to disagree and say, well, we're going to keep fighting for this issue. So that's an unfortunate obstacle because you would think these partners would be right alongside you. And many of them are, but many of them push back because they don't want to, you know, maybe dilute their message. But we really want to push to ensure that women, immigrant women, are at the center of a conversation around immigration. Because if you win policies that help immigrant women, you actually win policies that help everybody, right? So that's really important. And then obviously this political climate has been very, very challenging. The current president and vice president and administration and Congress do not support immigration, do not support reproductive rights, do not support, sexual health information that's medically accurate and correct. And in fact, they're putting money into centers that give fake information. So there's actual taxpayer dollars going into clinics that don't actually give you real information about your health. So that's the obstacles we're fighting in terms of the, who the opposition is. And it's exhausting. It's exhausting. And just personally, one of my staff members, I was supposed to be here Friday, but one of my staff members who is a immigrant rights activist, a fierce Latina, very outspoken. She was picked up by ICE, by the immigration authorities, and she was put into a detention center in Arizona for 42 days for being an activist and for fighting for her rights. So that's scary, right? She's one of us. She's our organizer in Virginia, and she was taken away from us to sit in detention for 42 days when she has many gifts to give to the world, and sitting in detention is not one of them. So we were able to fight and get her free on Thursday, thank God. But now it's continuing the fight, and immigration is going after anybody. They're literally tearing families apart, tearing children away from their parents. And there's videos out there that you could see. It's really heartbreaking. So we're fighting not just to get, health care, but actually to be able for families to stay together and to be able to thrive in this country. All right, so I'll end on a quote. Audre Lorde, who's amazing, and you all should look her up, she said, "There's no such thing as a single issue struggle because we don't live single issue lives." Right? So remember that. We're whole beings that have many identities, and we believe reproductive justice and social justice and human rights really center all those identities so that we can bring to the center the folks at the margins and be able to create a society where everyone can thrive. So that's what we're fighting for, and I hope you're with us. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Jessica. I appreciate it. I want to thank, before we break here, I want to thank the teachers who brought your classes. I want to thank Ms. Lee, Ms. Fahey, Ms. Gerhardt, Ms. Graffenried, Ms. Lowenhaupt. Thank you for coming. Students of these teachers, thank you for being here. I also want to thank Ms. Joan Cass, former, for being here. Thank you very much, Ms. Joan Cass. And obviously, want to thank Grupo Jessica Gonzalez Rojas 2018. My students of my Period 3 class of Spanish for Spanish Speakers 3 developed this academic symposium. They did the first part on last Thursday, in this very classroom in the morning. And to make sure that we had an opportunity to meet Ms. Gonzalez Rojas, we moved it up to the afternoon. So we had a special treat. If you have any questions, I'm assuming that perhaps, is there a way that they can contact you? Maybe you could email? Write it right on the chalkboard. Please, there's contact information from Ms. Gonzalez Rojas. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for all of us here at the White Plains High School community to have such a unique talent, to have here a unique talent as we have with Ms. Gonzalez Rojas. So I would like to thank, first of all, let's give a round of applause for Grupo Gonzalez Rojas. And a round of applause for Ms. Gonzalez Rojas, please. Thank you very much.